Pete and I took it back to Fort Bragg. It was the best group he had ever shot.
All right, boys. This has been fun, though, doing the precision rifle with you.
Yeah, it has been fun. You know, I started competing with my dad in high school. And we used to shoot at this range now it's a big neighborhood, but just above Joe Max Road there off of I-17. We had the Skunk Creek range. And we would shoot 3 or 4 times a year, bench rest shooting.
Yeah.
And my dad and my uncles, they started in that competition bench rest shooting in 1960 or so. And none of them had enough money to pay a gunsmith to work on their guns, so they did it themselves. And that was my start, is building my first action for my first bench rest rifle, building a rifle scope, because again, it was cheaper to build my own rifle scope than it was to buy one.
Well, and that's what I was telling Ray. I was like, this scope right here, that was one of the you and your dad worked on.
Yeah, my dad, that was his idea.
Yeah, put that Black Widow web in there.
Yep. But yeah, it's been an interesting ride, and it kind of all came together working with David on the tub rifle. And
well, even before that, like, you had this on your bench rest rifle, right?
That was a bench rest action for the bigger cartridge. It's funny how everything comes together. You know, that action uses a firing pin spring combination that I first saw on the minigun.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you take that, you just pop the back cap off there. Just that right there.
So essentially, if you looked at this, it's kind of a long minigun firing pin.
Yeah.
And doing work for Mike Dillon on the minigun, I was exposed to it, and I thought about it, and I realized, I think this solves some problems we have with our standard
with the Mauser style.
Remington Winchester style firing pin spring assemblies.
Yeah.
And so I built it on this one, was the first one, and then I went ahead and put it on the tub rifle, and it's actually been really successful.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny how things come together. There are no really new ideas in guns.
I mean, they've been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing that you and I've had these conversations about with this gun, is like all those lessons learned that you've had over the years of what we wanted to incorporate in this rifle, right?
Yeah.
That was
right. Yeah, you've been in the business and you've seen a lot of things that worked and things that didn't work.
Yeah.
I've seen some things that I thought would work that didn't work. And when Chris said he wanted a rifle built, I'm thinking a rifle. This looks like a rifle to me.
Yeah.
It's got a rifle stock. It's, you know, it's not a tub rifle, but this is the kind of rifle I think of.
Yeah, this is what we see on the shelves all the time.
And you know, Chris saying, no, I want a gun that feels like the tub rifle. I love the way that feels. So it kind of forced us to think in a different direction.
Yeah.
And again, I'm thinking, you know, the tub rifle to me is pretty. Well, that wasn't the vision Chris had. I remember you just recently took him down, but he had some sketches up on the board over there of what he thought the rifle should look like. And my first thought was, that's kind of ugly. But after you work on it for a year or two, you think, this is a really cool design.
Well, especially when you put the stuff in there that we wanted to put in there. That's what I like. Is my first encounter was this at my last job. And we had a guy that was shooting PRS at the time, and he actually was infatuated with the Tub 2000 just because the way it functioned and how smooth that action was.
Yeah.
And that was cool when I finally got to meet you, because again, like you said, I've been doing this for 12 years now, and he was infatuated with that rifle, and then obviously I get to meet you, and it's like, hey, this is the guy that designed it, built it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that it came together and it works well.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could engineer something to be smooth, you know, to function smoothly. You know, and sometimes even on the custom rifles we made on our own Remington style action, You build some rifles and they're just as smooth as glass. The next rifle somehow just doesn't feel quite the same. You don't really know what the difference is, a slight difference in tolerance or a difference in surface finish or what. But the Tubb rifles, they're really smooth.
Yeah. Well, in those aspects, I mean, that's what led us down the path that we did with the 302, was because we knew Chris always wanted it to be glass and consistently glass.
Yeah.
And we'll go through the iterations later, but we went through a lot of iterations to make sure that that was really smooth.
Yeah. Well, and working on the CTSR or the 302, that's been an interesting evolution of ideas, because when we first talked about it, I wanted to continue doing the PR35 type action.
Yeah, basically a Remington 700 footprint style setup.
With a chassis type stock and...
Yeah, pretty typical.
Yeah, and it through an evolution of stages of that process. I remember the day that it occurred to me. You and I were talking about it, and I thought, if we make this a barrel extension rifle, we can make the action out of aluminum.
Yeah.
And that simple idea is what created the whole platform for the 302.
Well, and we were building that off of even just looking at the tub and understanding how it worked and that smooth, and we were just like, we want this smoothness in a simpler approach.
Yeah. Yep. And I it's, in some respects it's simpler.
And in some respects, it's more complicated.
Yeah, yeah. You've had all the complicated stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember, I was surprised when I went back and pulled up one of the early CTSR type models.
Yeah.
Before we had come to the internal hinge concept.
Yeah.
We still had the knuckle on the outside.
Yep.
I was surprised that rifle that we had designed and I was actually making parts for, still had a steel receiver. We had not yet converted to the integral aluminum receiver. Yeah, we were actually, I was disappointed when Chris came in and said, "Don't make it that way, it's ugly."
Well, we were ready to prototype, and we were ready to be going forward because we knew we wanted to have that precise rifle. We wanted to just have something built so we could start down that path. He comes in and he's like, "I hate the knuckle, I hate this, let's just change it all."
That. But I was surprised because I didn't remember it that way, but when I looked at that model, that model that had the external hinge point, that we were actually I had actually had some parts made for it.
We had built bolt bodies already. We had built the bolt head. I think did we get blanks for the receivers already? I can't remember.
No, we had blanks left over from the old PR35 project.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that we had not yet converted to the aluminum receiver with. I think it was still going to have a barrel extension. Maybe it wouldn't.
Well, no, we were going to run steel, but we were going to cut the lugging and everything, the extraction cams and closing cams all on the receiver. And then that's when you and I went into, if we're going to build this as it's all enclosed, just like have the bolt enclosed, similar to how the tub's bolt is enclosed. That was when we decided, well, let's just do the barrel extension. We'll have a good secure mount on the barrel setup and make sure that the bolt head interface is proper, and then we can take that receiver, elongate it out so the bolt's continually captured through the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it makes a rifle that is easier to shoot well. The Tubb rifle is successful, I think, because it's an inline rifle.
Yeah.
And that makes it easier to shoot well. And the 302 is inline recoil, so I think people will just naturally be able to shoot it better.
Yeah.
Than, I remember when Pete and I took it back to Fort Bragg, and the guy that took us into the indoor range and sat down and shot his first 3-shot group through it, was so excited because it was the best group he had ever shot.
Yeah, which is cool.
Which is very cool. And it wasn't with ammo that had been tuned to the rifle or any of this. It was just out of the box factory ammo. So, That was the first hint that we had done something right.
Well, and even that target behind you, that's the best group I've ever shot, and it was out of our 302 rifle.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And when you think about it, all the other stuff is all on the periphery. It doesn't matter if the gun doesn't shoot. If you can't hit anything with it, it doesn't matter how cool it looks, how nice it feels, how smooth it functions. You know, so the fact that we built a rifle that looks cool, that is smooth, that functions well, that fits shooters, and it shoots, that's a real accomplishment.
It is an accomplishment. And it's been, obviously we glaze over all the iterative stuff, but but that's been the funnest process for me, is going through and gleaning all of that knowledge and taking your and my perspectives and then taking Chris's inputs and just combining this all into where we're at right now.
It's been a good team effort.
It really has.
I mean, I look back and I laugh when I think about my first idea on how to secure the barrel extension into the receiver. It's one of those things that looks good on paper. It was a horrible idea.
Which one?
Well, that was with the pins. It had the machined radius and the barrel extension
the cross pin
and the
bolt,
cross pin. Yeah, it looked much better on paper than it turned out in real life. It secured it well enough.
Yeah.
It just, to actually make it function was not what I envisioned. But even then, our second one didn't work right. And,
no, the second one, we had issues because the timing of the barrel extension, getting it to clock right and be consistent, that was one of the things, because that had the little cutout notch inside that we did.
So those were things that in the beginning I did not anticipate problems with that concept.
Yeah.
But that's why a team effort is much better than individual efforts.
It really is.
Like I told you before, I think two people are more than twice as smart as one people.
Especially when you're the other smarter one.
No, you've been very lucky.
Yeah. The nice thing is we've collaborated really well together, and that to me is where I think between all those involved, you know, when you think about Anthony, you think about all the work that he's done, all the work that you've done, I've done, Chris is it, and all of that together. That's been a process.
Well, I was lucky that for so many years I had the machine shop, and that if I wanted to have something made, I just went out and handed it to somebody and said, make this.
Yeah.
And they stopped what they were doing and they made it.
Well, and you were able to program it yourself too.
Yeah.
You know, you designed the programming, built it all up, and just said, I need you to run this.
Yeah. Yeah. And even then, sometimes the time it takes is surprising. Like you think, well, yeah, I got to get it heat treated. I'll send it over and he'll heat treat it tonight. No, they don't do that anymore. They used to do that, but not anymore.
Well, and there's a cost to it, right?
Yeah.
That's the kicker.
Well, all things are possible with enough money.
Yeah.
But within reason. Yeah. Well, it has been exciting. It's been fun. And I appreciate the fact that I still get to go out, sit down on my computer and work on stuff that excites me.
Yeah.
I mean, how lucky have I been? I've been able to do that most of my whole life.
Yeah.
Is, you know, that old saying that find something you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life. They wrote that about me. You know, I couldn't believe when I was working in the industry doing aerospace parts, I couldn't believe that they paid me to do what I did. You know, I wouldn't have done it for free because I would have starved, but it's still, it was nice to do something that every Monday morning I couldn't wait to get back to work.
Yeah.
Instead of being sick to my stomach thinking about having to go back to work, I was excited to go back to work. And then when we started McMillan Machine and McMillan Brothers, and I'd be at home and I'd have an idea. I'd come down on Christmas Day, sit in my office and do stuff because it's where I was happiest.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes a difference. And it shows. You know, that's the fun part. quite the legacy.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, even when we were talking about the 302, you and I started off the conversation of like, what do we need to make sure? And the biggest thing we focused on was you got to start with the magazine.
Yeah, to me, that's the hardest thing to get to function correctly. And it's really hard to make magazines in small volume. They turn out to be expensive when you fabricate them. And people don't understand why a 50 caliber magazine would cost $300. Yeah, because you're making 100 at a time, you know. And with the rifles that I built and that we're building here, you know, we don't want to build expensive tooling that can crank out, you know, 100 magazines a minute. You know, we'd use it. We'd run our whole year's production in the first minute, and that's when you could make a magazine for $15.
Yeah.
But yeah, you start with the magazine. Is the first thing I do in the solid model is load the magazine into it and build around it.
Yeah, because you've got to be able to feed it.
Yeah.
If you can't feed it.
It doesn't matter how good it shoots if it won't feed from a magazine.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we started with the 302 was magazine and then feeding it. And obviously that then evolved into going from there. But because you were asking like where we're at. So this, right now we're on version 2 of a complete build. And I say complete build because maybe in version 1, I revised a couple things on the back, or I revised a couple things on the front. We were still using the main body of the system, or I revised a couple things, but this is complete version 2. But it's neat when you consider like, you and I took quite a bit of effort making sure that this gun was glassy and it was all contained. And a lot of that comes from just operating this guy right here. You know?
Yep.
We loved how smooth that was. Now, obviously, this guy is different because you can pull.
Yeah. You
can pull the stock off. You can't do that with ours.
No. But the stock folds.
But we considered that.
Yeah.
One of the things that you did on the tub, though, is this is a still receiver.
Yep.
And from my understanding, when you were talking with David Tubb, is he would fine-tune and provide critiques on any adjustments that he needed.
I actually thought about bringing it in. I have the original prototype rifle.
Oh, do you?
That I sent David. And he spent a couple of months shooting it and then sent me back a legal pad full of notes on things he wanted to change. From as small as move the magazine release button 30 thousandths.
Yeah.
Somehow it wasn't in the, I think, well, David, you got big hands. What if a guy's got small hands? Well, it didn't matter. It was David Tubb, so I did what he asked.
Well, because it was a rifle that he was building for his setup, for his competitions, and
yeah, we were going to put his name on it, so he had a right. But there was nothing too insignificant for him to nitpick to death, and I thank goodness he did.
Yeah.
Because it turned out to be a rifle. If you went to Camp Perry today and stood on the firing line, you would not see a rifle that isn't a tub rifle or doesn't look like a tub rifle.
Yeah, or have features of a tub rifle that was on there.
Yeah, the old stocked rifles that they used to shoot, that nobody shoots them anymore.
You don't see those.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
Yeah, and to me that's, I don't know. I'm always fascinated at where things have gone. But we didn't, outside of that, we didn't use, we completely changed the magazine. We used a different trigger system. We took everything and revamped all of it. Some of the...
I think that the collaborative effort is what I'm most proud of. I remember sitting over there and talking about the safety. And I'm the one who said, you know what, I like the way the safety on my 1911 feels.
Yeah.
And you said, we could do that.
Yeah, we weren't over there though. The thing is we were all back there in the back warehouse because that was where we were at. because the conversation was coming from where ergonomically do we like to have everything, and between Chris, Pete, you, and me, we all decided that 1911 was the thing to do.
Good.
Yep.
You know, and since you basically have the AR type grip, which one of these days I hope you get around to building the version I made with the 1911 grip for
I've actually got the 3D print out there, and we will be doing that. We just needed to get through this testing phase.
Yep.
I've got that 3D print out there, but it's one of the things that, like this, David Tubb wanted that round hound guard because he's...
Yeah, because of the way that the style of shooting.
Mm-hmm. And we had to go rectangular because they wanted that flat bottom for their Arca rail, and then large... Yeah. Chris wanted the large... Well, we'll get into cosmetics. Chris wants to talk about cosmetics later, but just the way it's changed and morphed over time. Now, I can't remember. Did you do a floating bolt head?
No.
No, so it's not a floating bolt head.
No.
The reasoning behind that was what?
Well, so I ended up building...
You're talking on the PR35, this guy?
Yeah, I ended up building the PR35 with a floating bolt head because I could understand the logic behind why it might work well. And again, the PR35 was our entry into the lower cost action market. And darn, the guns shoot way better than you'd expect that they should shoot. And I think that floating bolt head is one of the key features in that.
Well, because when you think about any inconsistencies in your chamber, any inconsistencies in lugs, and we're talking tenths of thou to maybe a thou or two here and there, that bolt head just floats and moves and manipulates and then seats.
Right.
Yep.
You know, to build a bench rest rifle, one of the things you have to do, and I don't care if you're buying a Kelby action or a Bat action or Defiance action or whatever, to build a bench rest rifle, you have to lap the lugs in.
You do.
And sometimes they're only off a few strokes to get them to clean up. Sometimes they're off a lot.
Yeah.
And with a floating bolt head, that's not as critical of a feature. So,
and not to say that lapping wouldn't help this setup. It's just out of the box.
Yeah.
This gives you the best performance out of the box.
Yeah.
You can still lap these and improve it.
Yeah.
All that's going to help.
But yeah, you know, I'd forgotten. This isn't the first action that I did that firing pin on. First action I did the firing pin on was that original 40 caliber bench rest action that I did.
Oh, yeah.
And it did have a removable bolt head. This is for the Chi-Tech project.
Yeah.
Which they still shoot those in the King at 2 Mile.
Yeah, and I noticed like on the David Tubb, like he had it set up like this, and he took fine detail to even just the bolt knob and the magazine. You guys were running just that standard AR-10 SR-25 style magazine.
Yep. Yeah, in fact, that's what it was. It was an SR-25.
Yeah. And he wanted that because he wanted quantity of rounds for the competition, wasn't it?
Well, he had sent me a national match SR-25. He said, I like the way this rifle feels, but I want you to build me a gun that feels like this one, but shoots as good as your bolt gun. So I was already leaning towards the SR-25 magazine.
Yeah. Whereas on ours, we went with the AICS ATAW compatible setup.
Yeah, I found out.
One of the things that I thought was really cool about this that you and I talked about and even considered on the 302 is that scope rail is not vertical.
No. We found that. That's a good point. I'd forgotten all about that. We found that if you pick up a rifle and hold it, your hand doesn't normally want to tuck underneath vertical. So we made it so that they could set the rifles up with a 5-degree or a 10-degree cant. And as it turns out, 10 degrees was a good number. Most people, that's where they stayed.
Yeah. Which is, a lot of people would be like, well, now you've induced a cant and all this stuff, but no, it was because you've only canted around a radius, so it's still vertical to the bore. It's just your grip is now.
Yeah, the grip is canted, but the scope is still vertical to the rifle. Yeah.
And I know you and I considered that, but when we were looking at the 302 on that process, we ended up not doing it because cost to manufacture, as well as when you consider that if you've got a left-handed shooter behind this, that's going to be problematic.
You know, we tried early on, the first of the tub rifles came with an elastomer shock system in the buttstock.
Yeah.
And me shooting high power, high caliber hunting rifles and stuff, I'm very aware of what recoil feels like. Well, high power shooters, they just shoot so differently. They get so tightly slung up in there that this elastomer recoil system in the buttstock was worthless to them because they put so much pressure on it, they collapsed it to the bottom anyway, just in their normal shooting.
Yeah, you could stand on the end of the barrel.
Yeah. So, we found out that didn't actually add. It for the guy that just wants to go out and shoot, it was fine.
Yeah.
And it might have helped. But for the high power competition shooter, they're so tightly slung into their rifle system that it didn't function the way I thought it would.
Yeah. Just going through all this stuff, we'd talked about doing a takedown, we talked about doing a collapsing, but Chris wanted to make sure that stock had nice smooth edges, and so we ended up doing that hinge. Okay. Now, that was kind of the fun part, is when you and I started going down that road. I remember you had sent me a link. We'd been looking at how to do hidden hinges, and this was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was, and how we wanted to approach that, because Chris came in and didn't want the knuckle, and or a single point hinge, and so then we started looking at that, and then you came across door hinges,
right?
And these high-end door hinges that are hidden, and then you're like, hey, look at this, and then me doing the engineering thing then went in and did a 6-bar linkage, and here we are.
Yeah, and it is, well, that's kind of unique in a rifle.
Yeah.
And it accomplished everything Chris wanted to do, and everything you wanted to do. It's stiff and robust, and and that was where I stumbled across the hinge. I could not have done the 6-bar design the way you did.
That was fun. It took a minute, but we got there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the saving graces of 3D printing too, and CAD modeling. But like, one of the things that I know from my experience is if you don't have a solid lockup on the back end of that, your gun doesn't perform well.
And we were talking about how accuracy is a system result. And because I grew up in the bench rest competition era, the littlest things can have an impact. When you're trying to shoot 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch groups at 100 yards, if your cheek touches the stock one time and doesn't touch it the next time, the rifle won't shoot in the same place.
Yeah.
Now, for most rifles and shooters, they would never see that difference. But where we started, that was a big deal. And so you find out that a guy who goes to the range to zero his hunting rifle, sits it on a pedestal, grips it really hard because it's going to hammer the snot out of him, it's not going to shoot exactly the same as when he's shooting it offhand at a deer.
Yeah, and I took this rifle, actually this very rifle, at the modern day sniper course. And that was one of the things that they harped on, is making sure that when you get behind the gun, your body position, your posture, and everything is consistent and repeated. Yeah. Because the gun, if we were to lock this into a vise and shoot it, it'll shoot a group. And then if you put a person behind it and shoot it, that group will change.
Right.
Just because that system. And like you said, so that was one of my focuses on this, was how do I engineer this in a manner that locks everything down but is not overtly
Right.
in your face.
You don't
It's
feel any
subtle.
wiggle in that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the fine details that most people probably wouldn't even notice or even look to find it. That was the intricate details of getting into what, when, and why, you know. The way the handguard mounts. We did bipod load testing on this thing, and where you push, you pull, and a lot of bipods, because of the way they're, not bipods, sorry, a lot of the handguards, the way they're designed and the way they attach, they'll manipulate your point of impact,
Sure.
the point of aim.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I knew was going to be a problem. So I made sure that in the interface, it didn't move. Some people may consider it over-engineered, but I would say proper.
Well, like I said, we might not know what makes them shoot, but we know what makes them not shoot.
Yep.
And a little wiggle here and there is not a good
It's
thing.
not a good thing.
So yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the gun designer, the historian gun designer that I worked with had a project when he worked for Ruger on the Mini 14. And the Mini 14s used to shoot, they might still, 2 different groups. You shoot a magazine, a full magazine through a Mini 14, you would end up with 2 noticeably different groups on the target. And he determined through testing that it depended on which side of the magazine
That round fed.
the round fed from, because it spring-loaded the bolt assembly differently if it was on this side or on this side, and it had an impact on the accuracy of the rifle.
Well, and even just loading it in, the nose of that round would hit on the left side of the ramp versus the one on the right side would hit the right side, and so now the nose of the round has a very small
Inconsistency.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you think about something as small as that would have an impact, I mean, the fact that you can't over-engineer something. The smallest things can make a difference.
Yeah, but we also don't want to be where you're so over-engineered that
You can't make it.
you can't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could make it, but nobody could afford it.
Yeah. Yep. But we've given a lot of detail, just even to how the magazine loads, the magazine feeds. We've given details to the barrel interface, and that one's been through an interchange. And that's the thing that we're testing next, is that lockup. We went through, the very first one was using the cross bolts.
Yeah.
And then we went in and we decided that we wanted to try clamping down, and then we had conversations. I don't think you were there, but had conversations with some gentlemen that were special forces, and they just wanted a fixed barrel setup. They don't want the quick change setup. So now we're going to go back through and test that. And the nice thing is like Anthony and Mike, that thing is rock solid when you tighten that bolt down. So.
Yeah, you know, that's something too, is that when we started off, we had an idea of what the customers wanted. So it turns out it wasn't what these customers wanted.
Wasn't what those customers wanted. But at the end of the day, it'll shoot well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's actually a beautiful rifle. One of the things I'm happiest about is this sleeve back here. How well that works.
Well, and that's part of the that's part of the process that that was a ride. We had tested 4 different materials, 6 different geometries, just to get it to where we started liking it. The very first ones we did functioned at first, but then as you ran it and you cycled it, it started to act up.
Yeah. Yeah, when Pete and I went back to the East Coast,
Sitting there
we
with
had an aluminum one.
yeah,
Before the first day,
pliers.
he was tweaking it to make it, because it had warped or bent.
Yeah, it had bent because over time, and we tried different materials, but this one right here, that's the winner.
Very pretty. Good job.
I look forward to getting this in the customer's hands and being able to showcase your and my, being able to showcase all that history that you and I just talked about, being able to showcase the reason why we did what we did, and being able to allow the end user to experience it and know that you and I went through from the muzzle to the end on every detail and incorporated all the things that you and I wanted in a gun. And I look forward to getting consumer feedback. I look forward to getting this out on the market, and I look forward to seeing people's posts on it.
Well, I'm excited and I'm proud of it, because I don't think we didn't take any shortcuts. No. And we didn't compromise any of yours and my standards.
Yeah. That even goes into the material selection. Like, we did not want to say, oh, we'll just make it out of a cheap 1018 steel. You know, or make it out of a cheap this, that, or the other. There was thought behind all of it. Now, some of it you have to give and take, because you can't build a $20,000 rifle. So you could. You're just not going to sell very many of them. So there is some give and take that we do have to do. But you and I wanted this product to be premium.
Well,
and to be
product that you're not ashamed to have your name associated with.
Exactly.
Good job.
I'm hungry for lunch.
Are we going to lunch?